Hello, I'm Chris Flisher, and welcome to Turning of the Wheel, an intelligent, lively discussion on astrology, art, and adventure. Timing is everything, and as the great wheel turns, we are best prepared when we are best informed. Join me as I explore the current planetary alignments and offer insights for coping with change. Educational, informative, enlightening, the Turning of the Wheel is a welcome pause in your daily swirl of constant change. Through intelligent discourse, inspired guests, and educational segments, I will help to enlighten your knowledge of astrology and guide you to accept change as the great wheel of life turns. Call in with your questions and speak with some of the greatest visionaries in the time-tested practice of astrology. Turning of the Wheel, Astrology, Art, and Adventure with Chris Flisher, each week on Turning of the Wheel podcast. Hello and welcome to Turning of the Wheel. My name is Chris Flisher. This is a show about astrology, art, and spiritual adventure, as you know. And as I've mentioned in the past, oftentimes I will wander off into different areas of the cosmos and try to find interesting people to talk about interesting topics. And that allows me a much broader view of what's going on with the world and allows me to sort of delve into esoteric topics and ask really cool questions about this great mystery of life that we live in. Before we get my guest on, I'm going to start. I just want to remind you about my newsletter, which goes out every Sunday afternoon. In there, you'll find a mundane overview of all the planets and where they're going and how they affect all of us as individuals in the planet. And then I will break it out into individual signs beneath that. I encourage you to read your sun sign and your rising sign each week so that you know exactly what's going on. You put those two together, and you're going to get a much more accurate idea of what's going on. So my next guest is, we're going to be discussing about a manual for developing humans. And her name is P.M.H. Atwater. That's her name, P.M.H. We already had this discussion before the show started about what to call her, but it's P.M.H. is her name, and that's what we're sticking with, P.M.H. Atwater. And it's a guide to living for this life and beyond. And it's a fascinating sort of discussion because of the fact that she has been a person, is the author of more than 15 books, including Dying to Know You, Future Memory, Beyond the Indigo Children, We Live Forever, and I Died 3 Times in 1977, the complete story. She's been researching the near-death phenomena since 1978 and is considered a world authority on the subject. She is a workshop leader at major spiritual holistic gatherings and has addressed audiences at the International Association for Near-Death Studies, as well as the United Nations and in numerous countries. Her books have been translated in over 12 languages, and she has appeared on The Larry King Show, Regis and Kelly Live, and Geraldo. It's a fascinating subject because, first of all, welcome to Turning of the Wheel, P.M.H.
Hi.
So, I mean, this is so overwhelming a topic. It's difficult to get into, but I'm going to start. When you say you had 3 near-death experiences, explain that.
3 in 3 months.
Wow.
I call it the heavenly sledgehammer effect.
I guess that's true. Well, you're still laughing, so it must have been okay.
Yeah, well, it's the way it happened.
Yeah. So that, and as a result, do you think that you came away from them differently, as a different person, as a result of your experience?
Oh, no doubt. Mm-hmm. No doubt whatsoever.
I've had many people.
And I was told in my 3rd near-death experience by a voice like none other. That's what I call it, the voice like none other, because I don't know what else to call it. My sense is it's of God, but, I don't know. But it's this incredible voice that said I was to be a researcher. Mm-hmm. In fact, quote, test revelation, you are to do the research, 1 book for each death. It did not say anything about book 1, nor did it name it, but it did name books 2 and 3. Book 2 was Future Memory. It's out. It's the companion piece to the one that's just done, a manual for developing humans. Mm-hmm. Those are the specific books I was told to write in death. And then to do the research, and I'm a cop's kid, raised in a police station. So, I use police investigative techniques as my protocol. Mm-hmm. I'm extremely thorough. And, I'm even working on another project right now. So, what else can I say? I didn't realize you were an astrological show, but let me very quickly put in here that I have Pluto just a couple of degrees from my ascendant,
Mm-hmm.
and I have Saturn just a couple of degrees from my midheaven.
Wow.
And so that should tell you that I'm scrappy, I'm thorough, I'm direct, and I'm in there. I do the job.
And you're also one who deals with transitions. Transitions are part of your modus operandi, your mode of living. It's part of who you are. In that experience, do you feel as if these experiences came to you in an effort to spread, to deliver some sort of message?
No. And I say no because at the time, most people seem to forget that near-death experiences usually come from violence or trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So you're dealing with rebuilding your body, lots of exercises, medical, all this kind of stuff. Plus you're dealing with what happened to you. And for most people, that's hard to translate.
Yeah.
How did you translate the very different kind of person you now are? That you're able to have out-of-body experiences, maybe frequently. You're able to understand things and see things that you didn't see before. In my case, I had very much been a part of the metaphysical, the new thought, transformations of consciousness since, when did I get into that, first of all? In the 1960s. Mm-hmm. Just head over heels, to the point that I started Idaho's first nonprofit metaphysical corporation called Inner Forum. We were having, I was producing meetings and all kinds of experiments, biorhythms, you name it. We were getting into it. With people by the thousands. For some reason, I never did anything small. It always had to be big. It was never enough that I did it. It was never enough that you did it. It satisfied me more if lots of people did it, different ages, different kinds of people, different thought streams. I had to be able to view that from as many different points of view as possible. So I was, I had 3 Kundalini breakthroughs, psychokinesis, you name it. I was doing it. I was teaching. I was doing all these kinds of things. And then you're going to get a kick out of this, Chris. I went through a period where most of us go through, where you get this feeling, this sense that that a new teacher is going to come.
Oh yeah, the student when the student's ready. Yeah.
Yeah, where a new teacher is going to come. Well, I was expecting a person. I got death instead. Bam. Or bam, 3 times. The first one was a miscarriage and extreme hemorrhaging. I had been raped. The second one was a major thrombosis in the right thigh vein. The third one, we're just not sure what killed me even now. Might have been a heart attack. We're not sure. But, I died again. And then later the first one was January 2, then January 4, then March 29.
Wow.
And then later that fall, I had 3 major relapses. I was working at the bank as a forms analyst. I was working in the analytical department with a blood pressure reading of 60/60.
Wow.
Which means I wasn't doing too good. And had to get over that. And the turning point for me, Chris, was in about, I think it was the first part of November in 1978. In Seattle, Washington, they, at the big center there, they had what was called the Mind Miraculous Symposium. Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, Dr. Brew Joy, Dr. William Tiller, all of them came out. there was, I don't know whether the place holds 2,000 or 3,000, whatever, but there wasn't even standing room. And the first speaker on the docket paid for my trip. And that was Dr. William Tiller. And he was speaking on the eternal now. And it was his, I can't really remember all that the man had to say, except toward the end of his talk, he was convinced that the eternal now could be charted, that it had structure, that it was something that could be studied. So he flashed up onto this gigantic screen his idea of what the eternal now looked like and how it functioned. And that was exactly the same thing I experienced in my third near-death experience.
When you refer to the eternal now, what does that refer to? Is that like being fully present?
Happening at the same time in the same place. Like there's no past, there's no future. It's all now. Everything is now. Mm-hmm. Everything is simultaneous. Is
the focus to be grounded in the now? Is that the idea, to be fully present, that sort of strain of thought?
I don't know what I was to learn from that. All I know was I jumped up from my chair, ran out of the place, collapsed under a foyer light, and rocked and cried and rocked and cried and said, "I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. He's seen it too. I'm not crazy." And so for me, that was validation.
Of course.
That validated my experience. And from then on, I started getting well, and things started to come together for me. But my mind was so different. I just could not relate to life as it was. So I quit my job at the bank on the very day I was to get a promotion. I went in to my boss and I said, I am resigning. I'm going to go chase rainbows. Huh. And she stopped. She stopped me. She said, "Sit down. Don't say another word." And this woman is, a very straight-laced type, analytical bank person. And she said at 4:00 that morning, she had a vision, not a dream, a vision. And in that vision, she went to her boss and said that I was leaving, that I was going to chase rainbows, that she was going to have to replace me. And she woke up her husband so she'd have a witness. And here I am, about 5 hours later, walking into her door and saying the exact same thing she had seen in a vision that morning. And Chris, the only thing I could think of to do was take my fist and hit her desk and say, "That's not fair. You got it before I did." She was literally told before I was.
And what was it that you were told?
I was told to fulfill all my childhood dreams and wishes in traveling across the United States and going from my dear Idaho to live in Falls Church, Virginia. I'm an Idaho. I'm a Western woman. For me, the United States ended at Denver. Anything east of Denver was in Greece or Europe or, it wasn't in the United States.
It's a big country.
So it was a blessed trip. All kinds of synchronicities, all kinds of things happened. Very similar to, what happened with my boss that morning. And I finally made it to Falls Church, Virginia. I didn't even know Falls Church was a city. I finally made it there. Went in, found a place to live, a place to stay, an apartment. Went to the employment agency, said, I'd like to have a job. And they uh, lined up 3 that I was to go to the next morning. So I went to the very first one at the corner of 20th and I in downtown Washington, D.C., and I'm standing at the doorway to go in, and I saw myself already there. I was seated at the desk. I was going back and forth to the file. I was walking all over the office. And I just stood there at the doorway watching myself already there.
So this is an out of body experience.
Well, I'm standing at the doorway, but I'm already there. I'm already doing the work. And I thought to myself, oh, this is interesting. Well, I might as well work where I'm already there. So I went in and got my interview, and I knew they'd take me. He said, we have to think about this. So instead of going to the other 2, I just laid down on the lawn at a park in Washington, D.C. and took a nap. And later on in the afternoon, I called my employment agency and said, I would like to take this job at this place. And and she was, having a little fit saying, we're trying to reach you. They have called us. They want to hire you. I said, of course. So, I got the job. She says, when do you want to start work? I said, 9 o'clock the next morning. So I did.
Wow, incredible. When you look, do you think that some of these events that have happened to you have been, what is the source of them? Do you think that they are within you already? Were they divinely implanted in you when you arrived on the planet? Or do you think that this was a result of your near-death experience?
Certainly it was a result of my near-death experience.
And during that time, what was
I am?
When you talk about a near-death experience, were you literally pronounced dead? Or just did you enter into that state where you thought
I have a little problem with that because the doctors said I could not live. There was no way I could be alive.
Oh.
But yet I was looking up at them. So.
Wow.
How do you score that?
Yeah, no, that's a valid point. And this sort of information that has come to you through your research and through your sort of your connection with your antenna are very finely tuned.
Let's just back up a little bit here because
sure.
a lot of what I learned in relearning life is in the book Future Memory, which is not a book; it's a labyrinth. Every sentence, every paragraph, every page is part of the math I use to create the labyrinth. It is a real labyrinth. You read through it like you walk through a sight labyrinth.
Interesting.
And the purpose is the same, to raise your consciousness up to the next highest level possible for you. So it's a labyrinth. Future Memory is a labyrinth. How do I view all of this? For me, it's been like an adventure story. For me, it's been like finding out how this world works, finding out what a body is, finding out what a heart is, finding out what eating is, what moving is, what are cars, what's a bank account, what are children. I'm a mother with 3 children. What is a mother? What are children? What's weather? What's a sun? What's the moon? I just relearned all of it, literally from scratch.
And when in that relearning, was your interpretation of those things different?
Well, when I say I relearned them, I want to be specific. I sent off to all the makers of pots and pans, got their metallurgical reports, their manufacturing specs. Then I took those and I went to a laboratory in Boise, Idaho, and had them tested. And from that, I decided what pots and pans I would use, and I threw all the rest away. I literally tore apart everything in my world, everything in my life in that manner. And from that, then, I left Idaho, rediscovered our country, and I'm now in Washington, D.C., and what's drumming in my head is do the research. Do the research on near-death experiences, the people who have them, the different ages, where are they, what are they like, how does that change their life, and in what manner, children, adults. My research base is nearly 4,000 adults and children. And
they all are at varying stages of near death, or they have got, yeah.
Yeah, every one of them, and the after effects. And I've been very specific in all my books. You know, the big book of near-death experiences, the rest of the story, coming back to life, beyond the light. I could go on and on and on about the books that I have written, what I have done in the way of research. And it's not an exaggeration, really, to say that hundreds of thousands of people have said that my books have saved their life. Mm-hmm. Because they didn't know about after effects. They didn't know about the experience itself.
Do you think it gave you a greater appreciation for living? Or was it more of a
for me, it gave me a greater sense of the joy of finding out more and more and more about what this world is and what life is.
So you were always a curious person, and this ability allowed you to tap into a reservoir of knowledge that was completely perhaps unknown to you before, and now opened up this whole new realm of information to you.
Well, I knew a lot, of course.
Right.
Went through the yogi training.
Right.
All of this kind of thing. A lot of studies in metaphysics and, but what it did was it took all of that and turned the page. Mm-hmm. I was a professional astrologer, took all of that, and I put myself back in beginning astrology. I taught meditation, put myself back in beginning meditation.
So you used this as an opportunity to sort of reinvent yourself, or you saw it as
learned everything.
Did you see it as a signal from the universe that you needed to be reinvented, or do you just think that was?
I saw it as an opportunity.
Opportunity. Mm-hmm.
It was an opportunity
to go deeper and to have a deeper understanding.
To find out.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to know more.
Right. But your experience, did you have any sort of awakening of sorts, or did you come to any sort of epiphany as a result of this?
It just goes on and on and on. Yes. Mm-hmm. And what? And one after another, and it just goes on and on and on. It hasn't stopped.
This is a very Uranian kind of moment for you. This explosion of the unexpected, and then delving into unusual realms. Do you think that your intuitive powers and your intuition and sort of your, sort of what I call antenna are more acutely tuned now than ever?
Well, that's part of the near-death experience.
Right.
You weren't psychic before, you become psychic after. Mm-hmm. If you were psychic before, you become very psychic after. It has taken all of that and expanded it to levels that I never knew existed.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
And so that brought you to write the books that you've been writing. And your latest book, A Manual for Developing Humans, is an interesting title, I think, because of the simple fact that it says, well, why aren't we? We're all sort of an experiment. We're all learning every day, right? And
right.
But which way we point our intention is going to matter. What the outcome is, obviously. We have to be. Right. So it's important that we point in the right direction. Otherwise, we come out the wrong end. And so you're taking your experiences of what you learned through your near-death experiences and bringing them, infusing them in with your knowledge of the esoteric arts, and creating a sort of a structure or a routine or procedures for
basics, just the basics.
basics. Yeah.
The basics.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be clear here on how future memory and a manual for developing humans came together, because I view them as apart from my research.
Oh, okay.
They came directly from my third near-death experience.
Mm-hmm.
They came from what I call the voice like none other. So,
and was that a literal voice, or was it a voice you heard in your head, or how did it come to you?
Chris, you're getting right into it. Originally, my sense was it was a voice, but I didn't hear a voice. And it's only been that voice I heard in my third near-death experience. It came to me again to do future memory. It came to be the third time to do a manual for developing humans. It's only been in the last 3 weeks, just that recent, that I really confronted, what is that voice? What is it? Let me describe to you what it's like when that voice comes, because it's only come those 3 times.
Okay.
You're in a room, right? And there's air in the room. You don't see air, but you know that the air is there because you can smell it.
Mm-hmm.
The air in my room folds over. And it folds again and again. And from that folding emerges it's not a being. It's not a being. It's not an angel. It's not a quantum this or that. It's not the hierarchy. It's the void.
Mm-hmm. Is it like a fog descending upon you,
No.
or an aura?
No, it's the void.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I was there in the void in my second near-death experience. The void has no color. There's no one there. There's no activity. There's no sound. There's nothing in the void. It's sort of like a dark place. It's sort of like dark energy or dark matter. It's just dark.
Mm-hmm.
But there's nothing there. Yet there's the presence in the void of everything that has ever existed and everything that ever will exist. It's sort of like the ultimate womb of creation, if you will. But there's nothing there. But there is something there. There's this presence of shimmer. It's sort of like if you're going to touch Jell-O that you've molded and you've taken it out of the mold and you put it on the plate, and you're going to take your finger and you're going to attempt to touch that Jell-O, and you're getting closer and closer, and you're right about ready to touch it, and then there's this shimmer. It's not activity, it's shimmer. It's something you feel and taste, but it's a shimmer. And that's what comes, is that shimmer. That's what the voice is. It's the shimmer of the void.
Wow, that's fascinating. We're talking today with P.M.H. Atwater, and she is the author of a manual for developing humans. We're going to take a quick break here, and for about 2.5 minutes, I'll be right back, and we'll continue discussing. We're going to get deeper into the book and sort of some of the things that she wants to pull and tell us,
Yeah.
and let us know. So we'll be right back, so hang in there. What is your destiny? Where are you going? What is your real purpose? Do you know? Do you want to know? Of course you do. It's your duty to yourself. We are all here for a reason, and we all have great potential. Discover all of this and more with a professional astrology reading. My name is Chris Flisher, and I can help you. Discover your strengths and work on your weaknesses, and live your life to its fullest capacity. Based on your birthday, birthplace, and birth time, an authentic astrology reading will allow you to live your life to the fullest and reveal your true purpose. Only real astrology can give you real information. It is your destiny, and it is your path. Write me at chris@chrisflisher.com and book a reading today, or call me at 978-393-1036. That's 978-393-1036. www.chrisflisher.com.
Astrology is the science of spirit, and it can serve as an invaluable aid in making the difficult choices in life and seeking truth in all the directions we choose. It holds the potential to allow each of us to evolve to our highest potential. It is the logic of the universe, the code of existence, and the pathway to true wisdom. It is our duty to draw from it the instructions for our lives and to live them to our fullest potential. As the great wheel turns, we are best prepared when we are best informed.
As the world shrinks and our barriers come down, diverse cultures are striving for harmony, balance, and peace. To ease the transition, we need to expand with color, light, and tolerance. Now, you can become a global citizen and embrace the color and clear spirit with the divine artwork of the mandala. Mandalas are a timeless artistic offering for creating unity, harmony, and peace. My name is Chris Flisher, and I've spent years creating mandalas, and they are now available online at www.turningofthewheel.com. Come and experience the world of color, form, and function with t-shirts, coffee mugs, note cards, and limited edition prints. These vibrant, lively paintings and products express optimism, oneness, and spiritual balance for all who use them. www.turningofthewheel.com. That's www.turningofthewheel.com. And enter a world of possibility and color. Okay, welcome back to Turning the Wheel. My guest today is P.M.H. Atwater. She is the author of A Manual for Developing Humans, and we're talking about her experiences and how she came to arrive at this place. And the questions I have for you are, if you had to, it's an interesting title, A Manual for Developing Humans. I guess you could say, well, we're all developing humans. We're all learning every day. Every second that goes by encompasses all of history that's come behind it. And then you talk about future memory. What do you think that we as humans are doing wrong that we would need a manual to develop? Are we doing this? This sort of assumes that we're not perhaps on the right path. Is there a better path for us to be on?
I don't think that assumption is valid. I don't think it's right or wrong. Mm-hmm. Rather, a manual for developing humans has all the basics in how to be a full, complete human being. Mm-hmm. If we go back in time, ancient history, it said that the sound of God, the tone of God was Hu, H-U, and that human was considered to be God-man. Human was God-man. So if you're full, if you're more who you can be, mm-hmm. then you are literally a God in the making. This idea of being spiritual, that's backward thinking. The goal is to be more fully human. That includes the spiritual and includes everything else. It's to be more fully.
Well, when you say being more spiritual is backwards, how do you mean spiritual? In what capacity? Do you mean organized religion? Do you mean belief systems?
This whole idea that we have, yes, religion, yes, spiritual thinking, yes, all of that. Mm-hmm. It's all backward thinking in the sense that the real goal is to be more fully human. Because literally, if you do that, you're God in the making. Okay. It says that in the Bible.
And what Right.
We are gods in the making. So I believe it's time now to say the words. It's time now to step forward. It's time now to be who we really are. And the manual then gives you the basics of that. All the basics are there. And they're simple. There are 28 thought form drawings in the book, or the manual. Just these things that we skip over. I mean, who teaches you how to be a human being, right?
I don't know. I didn't think there was a manual for it.
Nobody does.
Right.
So some of the things, for instance, the 6 weeks before your birthday every year are the weakest you'll ever be. The 6 weeks after your birthday every year are the strongest you will be for that year. 6 months above your past your birthday, 6 months later, that's when you start getting a lot of challenges. You can get them before and after, but you get specific challenges 6 months afterward. Who tells you that everything in your room, in every room, in your home, in your apartment, where you live, everything at eye level is what you're praying for? Literally, it's what you're praying for. These simple little things, the book is full of it. Day symbols, night symbols, plant rumbles, climate tricks, a hidden order, a natural anger, natural fear, what they really are, our shadow side, the third way, immigrants from other worlds, the prophecies of St. Malachi, the issue of messiahs, the crazy left hand of God, sex, relationships, children, how to be able to talk in a way that really serves you. The book is just full of it. Mm-hmm. Forget about psychic anything. The word psychic simply means soul.
Right.
So it's soul ability.
When you look at the greater human pool, what is it that you observe that we are missing the most?
Recognizing who we are.
And that comes from a sort of being in the present moment, being here and now. Is that sort of the kernel?
You could say that, mm-hmm. But this idea of accepting, of being, of revealing, of just recognizing who we are.
For better or for worse. Right?
I don't care what kind of study you get into. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get very far until you recognize that the point is you. That the point is knowing self.
Self. And that's a difficult thing for many of us to come to, which is why people seek out psychologists and they seek out astrologers.
Yeah, and that's what the manual's for. Mm-hmm. It's to help you get there.
Get there on your own. And, but, when you say, some pragmatic steps of, many people speak about raising their consciousness, being in the here and now, being fully present, and embracing where we are at this exact moment. Many people talk about that. It's the essence of Buddhism and Hinduism. And so these concepts are they're time tested and they're old and they are valuable to us. But what is it that you think that when you look out at across the general populace, do you think that we are not connected to what we're not developing?
We're missing the point.
Mm-hmm. And how do we miss the point?
How to exercise, how to talk.
Are we distracted? How to
relate to other people, money, jobs, children.
Well, those are natural. Those are natural challenges in life. We have to accept them and take them. You've been a mother. You can't walk away from a hungry baby.
Right.
So you have to be there. Then, are we doing those things wrong? Do you think?
No.
Okay.
What the manual shows us is the basics of how to do all of these things in a more full, open, receptive way. We talk about mindfulness. It's sort of like living mindfully.
Mindfully, yes.
Being able to look at all of these aspects and realize that they're all part of our life. It's like bending time. It teaches you how to bend time and out-of-body experiences. It's like that's nothing new or special or different or odd. That's part of our nature. That's who we are as human beings. It's not extra.
It's not extra, but I think that, we live in a world of enormous distraction, but I guess we could say that's always been the case. I mean, whenever we put the needle down on the record, it's going to be complicated. We don't live in any worse times than anybody else ever did. It's always a fracas, and it's always, distracting. And do you think that by avoiding this, or by being perpetually distracted, we avoid not only becoming our true purposeful selves, but also avoid tapping into our potential? I mean, I guess those are much the same.
Yeah, we don't see ourselves. We don't see ourselves. We don't know ourselves.
That's a construct or a problem manifested by the fact that we have some sort of intelligence or intellectual ability to look at ourselves in some way that other species don't seem to have. In other words, we have this ability to rationalize, to think, to show emotions, and things that get us very confusing, because we can spend a great deal of time in that busy head of ours trying to figure out what's right or what's wrong, and we sort of follow our instincts. So I guess the question I'm asking is, you understand astrology. When we're born, we're given a map of astrology, which is our imprint, which is our blueprint for our life. Our roadmap, our owner's manual. And that owner's manual should provide the instructions for us to move forward. And there's going to be hardship in there. There's going to be ease in there. There's going to be any number of things that are showing up there. If we follow our manual, literally, wouldn't we then become who we're supposed to be?
Well, hopefully so.
And you think that
what you have in front of you, a manual for developing humans, it just gives everybody the basics on every level. And it's a fifth dimensional format. That is to say, there are 6 sections. Each section is divided into 3 parts. All of those 3 parts are conscious, subconscious, superconscious. In the 5th dimension, all is revealed, intention rules. So everything is revealed on every subject as you go along. You get the full picture, and you are able then to see how you can handle that, how you can be a part of that, how you can live that, because all the basics are there. All the basics are there. My husband teaches a course in miracles. He calls this a metaphysical hardball. That's his phrase. Someone at level 3 has a hard time talking with someone at level 1. They don't hear them. So a manual for developing humans gives you all of that, all the levels. And you can see for yourself why the different levels may have problems talking to each other. You're able to see what the differences are. You're able to see how to handle that. And above all, you're able to appreciate that is so, and not be put off by it.
And you think you would not have arrived at this had you not had a near-death experience? Would this have come to you otherwise? If you were into...
No, I don't think so. I was on my way at the time to becoming a bank manager. I was taking classes at the American banking institute. So I was on my way for a very different kind of life.
Interesting.
I'd taken all these things. I was born with dyslexia and synesthesia. So my first grade was an absolute horrible, horrible nightmare. Unbelievable nightmare. That was the time of Pearl Harbor. I can clearly remember Pearl Harbor. I was traumatized by it. And I was walking from where I was living. I was raised by Norwegian Lutherans in the reclaimed deserts of southern Idaho. I wind up being raised by Norwegian Lutherans. I had 5 fathers and 2 mothers. So I'm walking to school, long walk. And in those days, they gave these giant gold stars to anyone, any household who a member died in the war effort.
Oh, right. Okay, yep.
And so, you put the gold stars on the windows. Mm-hmm. So as a kid walking to school, there's all these gold stars. And it was a path of death.
Right.
And by the time I got to my room, Chris, I don't recall a single morning in all of first grade when I didn't have to stop my shudders and quiet my sobs just to walk in the door of my classroom. And then on top of that, I was the only kid in school who could see music, hear numbers, and smell color.
Wow. That's
synesthesia. And that didn't go over very well. So I was almost kicked out of school twice by the principal, first grade. And I spent most of the first grade on a tall stool in front of the class, halfway between the teacher's desk and the door to leave. And sometimes I would have to wear a tall conical hat that said dunce on it as an example of a bad child who told lies. And I learned in the first grade that whenever I told the truth, I was punished.
Interesting.
And whenever I told a lie, I was praised.
Huh. Wow.
So I ran out in nature because nature never lies to you. And I just totally won with nature. I mean, totally. The spirit keepers of Idaho's deserts and canyons. I mean, I was totally into nature. Absolutely. The beings of nature I could talk with, I could see, I could do all kinds of things with. They literally raised me.
And so, in your experience with, through this course of life, and then
by the way, I also have moon opposite sun. Okay.
Well, that explains quite a bit, actually. But when you look at this, obviously knowing the language of astrology and what it can prepare you for, and what it reveals to you, you must have. And when you first learned this, you must have discovered that there was a different purpose for you from that in itself, right? You must have seen.
It was an absolute godsend.
Mm-hmm.
Absolute godsend. I took it year after year from Johnny Lister. I don't know if you remember Johnny. He was Sun Valley's astrologer. And we became good friends. I took it for many, many years. And one of the things that you might appreciate is I was really a technical astrologer. I thought I was pretty good. And then I died. And when I came back from that, I no longer understood astrology.
Oh, interesting.
So I put myself back into beginning astrology, and I relearned it, and I now view astrology in a very, very different way than I did before. I'm no longer the technician. The elements mean more to me than they did before.
Right.
The energy of how the oppositions and the squares mean more to me than it ever did before. And the houses and the numbers, it's a whole different world. I'm just not the technician I was.
Right. Well, in some ways, I always think of astrology as a science and an art. So the scientific piece is sort of the technical numbers you're talking about, but the art comes in how you interpret it and what you can derive from it. And so I think the real skill set comes in the derivation of the chart and how you interpret it and what you get from it. I think it's where you get your, it's wonderful just to study the aspects and see where things are going and what's on with you in the world. And it's fascinating in that regard. So I think in some respects, maybe you learned the intuitive piece of it after that.
Could be. Could be.
But
the art form,
to get back to your book, because that's what we're here to talk about, which is important. You say a manual for living this life and beyond. Do you believe in the beyond, and what does that sort of look like in your eyes?
My publisher put in that phrase.
Okay.
It's only supposed to have a manual for developing humans. Period. End of story.
Okay.
Well, not
that's fair. That's fair.
Anything else?
That's fair. But what do you, given your experience with death, what do you think is on the other side?
Depends on the individual and their energy and their desires and what they want to see. Mm-hmm. There's all kinds of levels. So it depends on you and where you wind up.
Yeah.
It just goes on and on and on and on and on.
Do you believe that we come back as spirits after we depart?
Well, I don't think belief is a proper word.
Okay.
But do we come back as spirits? We don't have limits, so we can do whatever. We can go on. We can come back. We can zigzag.
Is it our choice?
It's our choice to a point. I think we're heavily influenced by the different energies and the different forces and the different things that are going on. Mm-hmm. But we certainly have a choice in that. We can be a part of it, or we can leave and be a part of something else.
Mm-hmm. So there really is a wide spectrum of
possibilities. Very wide spectrum
of possibilities. Yeah. When you say a developing human, we could sort of hop on this train at any point in our lives and develop more deeply and more fully, right? We could develop more fully as a 5-year-old. We could develop more fully as a 65-year-old.
Absolutely, or an 80-year-old. Doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. And do you find that people who have had experience following this path, have they become deeper people as a result? Are they more, what's the word I want? Are they more enlightened? I guess that has its own connotations, I know.
That's hard to answer because the book just came out this April.
Okay. But you've been, right, no, I understand that, but I'm saying as an instruction manual, and you had to walk the walk in order to write the book.
Yeah.
So you're a living testimony to its success, I would imagine, since you wrote the manual on how to develop a human.
Yeah. Well, with the help of the voice like none other, right. Certainly. Mm-hmm.
And that voice like none other.
For me, it just brought so much ease.
Mm-hmm. Ease is an interesting word. So did you lose your fear?
Yeah, a lot of it.
Mm-hmm. Do you still have fear?
Sometimes I'll get fear at the moment, and it doesn't last.
Right.
You know.
We really don't need to fear anything. We just need to love.
Yeah,
we need to love.
A wasp came out of a pipe and bit me. Well, that was kind of fearful, and then get my senses back and say, "Oh yeah, I kicked that pipe. I understand why that wasp did that.
Yeah,
I can take care of that bird."
There's a consequence for actions. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'll tell you, I'm just everywhere. Mm-hmm. Last November, I was in Istanbul, Turkey, and the State Department was having an absolute fit. They said, "Don't go, don't go, don't go. They're kidnapping Americans. We cannot protect you. Do not go to Istanbul." My thought and my feeling and my sense was, go. You'll be just fine. So I went. And it was a perfect trip. I didn't have any problems. So, I listened to that sense of guidance, that sense of rightness, that sense of fullness, that sense of appropriateness.
Mm-hmm.
If it's appropriate, I'll be there.
Yeah.
If it's not, I won't.
It's not, right. And if the timing is right, you'll know that intuitively. You'll know that in your gut if it's right.
Yeah, you absolutely know.
Yeah, right. We've been talking today with P.M.H. Atwater. That is her name, P.M.H. Atwater, 3 initials, P.M.H. Atwater. Her book is A Manual for Developing Humans. And she arrived at this book and her other books as a result of experiencing and living through a near-death experience. And in that experience, I'm just, in summary for you right now, because we have got to close out here, I'm wondering what you would say as a closing statement to people who are looking for purpose, looking for a purpose. We all need a purpose. We've got to have a purpose in order to be on this planet. We've got to feel as if we're something. And those of us who are people who are distracted by the world and the fake news and everything else going on, this swirl of this cosmic energy going on, what is it that you would say to someone about why to read this book? What would it bring to them? Help raise
Find yourself.
To find
yourself. It all begins in self. Mm-hmm. All of it. I don't care how
do you think you found yourself?
Yeah.
Okay. That's great.
Yeah. And I'm just amazed at other people who are reading this book. There's a therapist who's now using the techniques in the manual and he's practiced with these patients.
Is it a liberating experience to know who you are now?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very freeing, isn't it?
It's fun. It's freeing. It's loving. It's joyful.
And you seem to be a very optimistic and joyful and upbeat person, so I think it probably is working for you.
It is. Me and my husband, yeah.
That's fascinating. What an interesting subject. I could talk a lot more about this, but maybe we'll have to get you back on again in another interview and discuss this further, because I find it to be very interesting. I've got a lot more questions, but we're running out of time, so that's what we do.
Oh, well, it's a reschedule. I'd love to do
we'll do it again. It's been great. My guest today has been P.M.H. Atwater. Her book is called A Manual for Developing Humans, and it really is it's another way of looking at life through a different lens, I think is the best way to say it. Looking through a different lens of what perhaps we're missing and what we're here, and how to be. It does draw on a lot of esoteric and spiritual components, I would say. I think being in the present moment is very much of a Buddhist, obvious. And the idea, yes, exactly. It's magical. And it has its qualities to it, but I think it's got steps in there that allow us to find who we really are. And we're only here for a short time, so why waste our time being the wrong person, right?
Right.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks, Chris.
PMH. It's been great having you here today.
You've been listening to Turning of the Wheel with your host, Chris Flisher. To schedule a reading with me or to order artwork, you may visit my website at www.turningofthewheel.com. That's www.turningofthewheel.com. Or you can call me at 978-393-1036. Thank you. And as always, be open to possibilities.